Once again, good afternoon to you if you're joining us on the via the Fire 107.7 FM link. Good afternoon if you are joining us via the Facebook and other via our Facebook platform. Good afternoon to you. We had a bit of an issue with the sound. There's always something going on with the sound, but it has been rectified. And well, that is only if you're listening on the link, then there's no issue with the sound. But if you're listening via Facebook, then there was a brief interruption with the sound, and the sound is back up as we speak. Guys, over the weekend, I don't know if you were privy to it, but a number of voice notes, very disturbing voice notes, were circulating on social media. And I don't know exactly what these things mean or whether or not they can be verified. But I heard, or maybe I'm the one who's hearing wrong, but these recordings seem to be very damning, very damaging, and they seem to be implicating a number of people in illicit activities. I can only hope and pray that the police can bring some sort of conclusion to all of these very disturbing and very scary things that have been circulating on social media. But before we get into that, a few weeks ago, I interviewed a mother of four who was the spouse of Mr. Ricky Joseph. Of course, Ricky Joseph was one of the fishermen, and we still, I've not been able to contact the family of the second fisherman who was lost to a kinetic strike by the United States government. We don't know the situation with these individuals, and I would really appreciate it if someone could reach out to the family, or if maybe the family can reach out to us and to let us know what is going on with these individuals, how they are faring. I can't imagine them being in a much more of a different situation than Miss Lucilla Charles, which is the lady I interviewed a few weeks ago. I am very happy because some time ago I made an appeal to my listeners to help me provide some assistance to Miss Lucilla Joseph. And we also got an appeal from another young lady. Sorry, that would be Lucilla Charles. Sorry. We also got an appeal from another young lady in Central Castries. Her name is Kira Joseph. You guys recall Kira called into the program. Well, I called her, and she was explaining to us what she had suffered because she had endeavored to seek assistance from the parliamentary representative who scorned her or spurned her because, quote unquote, while she voted for them, her mother did not. Well, I am happy to report that myself and Mr. Calix Joseph Xavier, we have partnered with a non-profit organization, a charitable organization. I'm not sure how they classify themselves, but they are willing to assist us in facilitating getting some help to these individuals. And they have allowed us to use their accounts because they already have the mechanisms in place that would allow us to provide assistance to these individuals in a sustainable way. You would recall that Miss Charles, I don't know why the name Joseph is just stuck in my head, but Miss Lucilla Charles, she was seeking assistance to help organize a sustainable pathway to caring for herself and her children. She wanted us to help her with the means of providing or enabling her to be self-sufficient and to start a small business. And also, she was welcoming any help regarding school stuff for the kids. And several of you guys, you've reached out to me and said, how can I send money or how can I provide assistance to these families? And so we've partnered, because it was faster, with this. Let me see if I get the name for you guys. It is a charitable organization that's already in existence, already providing these kinds of services. We've reached out to them. They've acquiesced and are willing to facilitate. So those of you who have reached out to me via Facebook and via WhatsApp, asking for a means by which you can send some financial assistance to these ladies, we're going to do it with the help or the facilitation of this charitable. Okay, so the name of the oh my, I didn't write down the name. Oh, how absent-minded of me, guys. I didn't write down the name, but I think the name is, you know what, I'll just wait. I'll call Mr. Xavier. But they've given us some information. They've provided us with an account where you guys can send us financial assistance so that we can start reaching out to these families and providing them with whatever help we can through your assistance. I'm going to have to, this information is too much for me to read out over the air because I don't want anything lost in translation. So what I'm going to have to do, guys, is some of you who have already reached out to me on WhatsApp, I am going to send you this information, and those of you who are willing to assist us with, financing, send me a message on WhatsApp and I will provide you with the information where you can give us monetary contributions Also, for those of you who want to maybe provide articles of clothing, stationery, because all of that is welcome. Articles of clothing, stationery, bags, so on and so forth. I'm going to have to provide you with an address as to where you can send these items so that we can put a little care package together. Hopefully, with your assistance, we will be able to provide both families with a little care and a little cheer and a little love before the beginning of the school year in September. Guys, once again, I am so happy and so thankful that this charitable organization has come forward, and since they already have the mechanisms in place, they have decided to partner with us and facilitate this process, because I have very little experience in these things, and I am so grateful that they are there. They're already in the business of helping families in that way, and they are willing to ensure that we have the means to stand by and help. Well, the means to stand up, actually, not stand by, and help these individuals. And once again, I couldn't do it without you guys. So some of you have already reached out to me via WhatsApp and on Facebook Messenger. I will be messaging you this afternoon with the particulars where you can send your financial contributions. These will go a long way towards helping Miss Lucilla Charles become sustainably employed so that she can continue to care for her family. And we're also trying to do a little something, provide a little assistance to Miss Kira Joseph. I know it is a very tough time right now. Everybody is trying to help their families, especially those of you with kids that are still going to school. But I really do appreciate from the bottom of my heart any assistance that you guys help us to provide to these two families. And whatever you give, we know it's coming straight from the heart, however little it is, however much you can afford. And it will go a long way, guys. So, I mean, if you know people who are willing to, oh, right, somebody's asking for our WhatsApp number. Our WhatsApp number is 51758 572 3473. I'll give you that WhatsApp number again. It is 572 3473. So drop me a line if you want me to pass the information to you where you can provide us with some assistance, whatever you can. Not asking anyone to go, I mean, to sell their house and stuff, but these families really do need your assistance. And I'm pretty sure that the two individuals in question would be extremely, extremely thankful for whatever it is you guys are able to provide. Give as generously as you can, guys. I mean, I know it is tough everywhere, and I just really hope that we are able to make a difference, especially because of the kids, and provide this lady, Lucilla Charles, with a leg up. Not a handout, a hand up. She's a talented breeder. She can she can, if she's given the opportunity, provide sustainable support for her family, but she needs that little push, this little inch, this little, you know, just a little hand up, not out. So I am employing you guys. I did tell you all that I would come to you and ask for assistance. Now that I have found the way to do it, here I am pleading with you guys and asking you to do the best you can, give as generously as you are able, so that we as a collective can help these individuals. And let me tell you something: one for all and all for one. We are all St. Lucians together. It doesn't matter what's happening in our country. We need to stand for each other. We've realized that these people in power, they're not going to stand up for us. So let us do the best we can and let us help one another, because the next person who might need help might be you. And trust me, I am willing to go all out to help in any way that I can. So once again, if you are willing and able to donate financially, feel free to contact me via the WhatsApp platform. I don't want to just go and give the people's information. I don't want to post it on the Facebook page, but I want to provide some information privately. So drop me a line on the WhatsApp platform. The number is 572-3473. I will provide you with the information so that you can make your monetary contributions. Also, I will come on here and let you know how much money we were able to raise, because I want everyone to share in this triumph when we are able to help these families. The charitable, I want to give them kudos. I want to praise them for helping us. So let me just find out. Because they have been very generous in allowing us in partnering with us so that this can be managed properly. We don't want any leaks. We don't want any okay, I'm going to behave. I'm not going to say any bad things today. But we don't want a repeat of what's happening with the SSDF. We want to ensure that these individuals get the help they need. And guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of these two families. Thank you for your support. Whatever you can do, it will be appreciated. It is necessary. It is needed. And you guys are a very, very, very special bunch. Speaking of special people, I found out today that another special lady is doing something extraordinary. Of course, I am referring to our very own Sarah Flood Bowbray. Last week, I was appalled at the attacks, the personal attacks that were leveled at this lady for standing up in silent protest. She's not agitating. She's not inciting violence. She's not being disrespectful in any way to anyone. And yet, for standing up for what is right, this lady was subjected to a volley of insults and abuse on social media. But in true Sarah Flood Bowbray style, she cannot be moved. You see, Mrs. Flood Bowbray, or Mrs. Bowbray, is currently, as we speak, protesting silently outside the Graham Louise building on the waterfront in Castries. Now, those of you who know that the Graham Louise building is the building which houses the office of the Prime Minister. And why is Mrs. Flood Bowbray continuing to protest, continuing to advocate for what is correct, right, just, despite the abuse? Simple. The only thing necessary for evil to flourish is that good men and good women do nothing. Guys, St. Lucia is our country. It's the only one we have. I don't know if you have any other nationality, but St. Lucia is our home. And what we need to do is protect our home. We need to protect the integrity and the reputation of our home. In doing so, we cannot allow evil to flourish at the helm of our nation. Within our 238 square mile radius, people can pick sides. It's your democratic right to support whatever political party you choose to support. But you must remember that actions have consequences. And when I say that, what I mean is that we as a people within this 238 square mile space, we cannot provide everything the country needs by ourselves. Meaning we are not self-sufficient. And we need to put things in perspective so we can understand exactly what is going on. You see, St. Lucia, currently, we have no manufacturing sector to speak of. We do not produce not even a fraction of the goods that we need or we use every day for our people's survival. We don't provide medications for ourselves. We have no manufacturing avenue to do so. We import a vast majority of the goods that we consume. And by that I mean foodstuff. We import nigh 100% of our clothing, and our shoes. We import all of our educational material needed for our children's education. We import all the medicine that we use. We import cosmetics, nigh on 100% of that. So basically, what I'm trying to explain is we rely heavily on outside partners. And not just for goods, we rely on them for services as well. We are a dependent country. I know our title says independent, but the truth is we are a very dependent country. We depend on tourism to generate foreign exchange. That foreign exchange allows us to pay our debts. It allows us to pay our bills. It allows us to pay everything and to import the things that we depend on. We depend on grant funding from friendly governments to ensure our survival for everything from healthcare, education, security, and everything else, even entertainment. We depend largely on entities like the World Bank and the IMF for loans to keep our country running. This is why we cannot afford to find ourselves in a situation where we as a nation are on the bad side or in the bad books of these friendly governments. We cannot afford it. We cannot stand up on our own as a dependent nation. We depend on friendly governments for our survival. I told you guys earlier, actions have consequences. We cannot afford corruption in our government. Look at the situation realistically that we are facing today. Just last week, the government effectively borrowed over $1 billion EC dollars from several international partners for everything from financing the 2026-2027 budget to climate resilience and so on and so forth. The list goes on. We do not have that many investors who are interested in our country. How do I know this? Because where are the announcements? Where are the investments? Nothing is coming in. Then there is the grant funding that enables us to have programs like crime prevention initiatives and WIRE and so many of them. Which is why I said we cannot afford to have corruption in our government. So when we as a nation, oh, I forgot something. CIP, yes. Sorry, I forgot that. The CIP, the Citizenship by Investment Program, it is already beginning to dry up, mainly because we no longer have visa-free access to the UK. We no longer have visa-free access to Ireland. The United States is making it more difficult for us to gain visas to access the United States, and so is Canada. We need visas to go to Canada. And more importantly, the European Union Commission has said to our governments point blank, end the CIP by June 1st, 2028, or else. These developments have made our passports less desirable on the world stage, and CIP monies are drying up. When you add all of these things together and you put them in perspective, you realize that we cannot have corruption in our government, especially the kind that we are seeing now. And I am speaking specifically to this SSDF scandal. For those of you who are not familiar with how the SSDF works, the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, SSDF, is an entity derived from the St. Lucia Poverty Reduction Fund, operating under the Basic Needs Trust Fund, which is a regional entity. And what that means is this agency was designed specifically to provide a social safety net for vulnerable persons in St. Lucia. Those who are unable to work, maybe they are caring for a disabled family member, or maybe they themselves are disabled. This entity or this agency is supposed to provide them with financial assistance to aid in their care and well-being. Persons who are sick and shut in and cannot afford to care for themselves, the SSDF is there to provide them with a means of sustaining themselves while they continue to recuperate, or so on and so forth. Persons who are elderly, have no kids, have no means of providing for themselves, the SSDF is the agency who helps them if they are living in dilapidated conditions, helps them with better housing. If they are frail, maybe they need stuff like, elderly care. The SSDF also provides persons, healthcare workers, to take care of our elderly, especially those who have nobody to care for them. The SSDF is the agency who's going to send out those home care workers to ensure that they are cared for during the day. They even help individuals who have ailing parents or ailing children but who have to go to work and they have nobody to care for their sick and shut-in relatives, the SSDF helps them by providing health care workers. So the SSDF is not just an agency where that is not necessary. It is a necessary agent, and that is just a quarter of the things that the SSDF provides for this country. The SSDF is an essential fund. It is necessary, it is needed. You might not know, but in St. Lucia, we have a great number of single parents who cannot afford to send their kids to school. The SSDF is the agency who bridges that gap. There are people living below the poverty line in St. Lucia. The SSDF is the agency that takes care of these individuals. In order for the SSDF to do all of the things that it needs to do, it requires funding. That funding comes from a number of places. We have private companies and private establishments who donate to the SSDF as part of their corporate social responsibility. So you will have entities like Bank of St. Lucia, Lucilec, these big companies that are able to, they provide to the SSDF as part of their corporate social responsibility. You have government allocations that come from the budget. So under the Ministry of Equity, the government of St. Lucia will allocate a certain portion of its budget to fund the SSDF. But the SSDF gets funds from other places. I mentioned the Basic Needs Trust Fund a while ago. The Basic Needs Trust Fund, you've heard of it. It is a regional body, that provides aid to several governments. So this is not just something confined to St. Lucia people. We need to understand the true extent of these things and how damaging it is to our country's reputation. We have the Caribbean Development Bank, who also provides funds to the SSDF. We have several other agencies. Friendly governments in Canada. Friendly governments, and when I say governments in Canada, you know what I mean, the Canadian government. Sometimes the American government, sometimes the British government. These governments provide these funds to help with poverty reduction in the islands and in St. Lucia. The agency responsible for that is the SSDF. This agency, in my mind, is supposed to be autonomous. It is supposed to, I don't even believe that the SSDF should be under the auspices of the Ministry of Equity. That's my personal view. It should be a standalone statutory board, because when you have it as part of a ministry, then I believe it makes it easier for what we see happening today to happen. But that is the way it is. It is part of the Ministry of Equity. The SSDF is not just important, it is essential, it is necessary. It is not a want, it is a need. And it should be protected. So when government ministers, especially government ministers who have no oversight, meaning they are not the ones responsible for the everyday functioning of the SSDF, when these ministers are found wielding SSDF checks as if it is monies from their personal bank accounts or their personal coffers, we must ask questions. We must demand answers. We must be concerned. You guys may not notice it, especially since everybody has their own domestic troubles or domestic issues to deal with. But current geopolitical climate, the current geopolitical climate is changing. The Prime Minister, in his budget speech for 2026-2027, he admitted that grant funding is drying up. Dr. Didicus Jules, he wrote a paper and the message was clear: nobody is coming to save us. The world is at war in more than one place. That Russian-Ukraine war, it has not ended. It is still going strong. Then you have war between Iran and Iraq, or Israel, sorry. Not Iraq, Israel. And the Americans are involved. This conflict, we don't even know what's going on a weekly basis with this conflict. One week we hear everything is fine, everything is okay. The next week we hear one country is bombing the next. And we have no control over these things. Now, guys, when these big countries are engaged in these kinds of conflicts, do you think that they have time to help St. Lucia with her problems? No. Do you think when we really need help, they are going to come to our rescue? No. Especially since they have already given us whatever allocation that was set aside for us, and then they're hearing that our ministers or a government minister was allowed to use those funds as his personal playground. Do you really think that these countries will be willing to extend a helping hand to us in the future when we have these damaging these damaging incidents hanging over our head. No. They wouldn't do it. And that's not the only scandal, you know. Guys, if it was just one thing, maybe we might get a pass. You know, they might say, okay, well, you have this area that you need to deal with. So fix that. Let's work on that. But look at the multitude of problems that have signaled corruption in our country since 2021. Look at the multitude of problems. We had the issue with the CIP, the Chinese. To this day, the SLP administration has promised us that the Canals Resort will be finished soon. The CIP money will bring us better roads, community centers, culverts, the bus, I don't know, a whole list of stuff they were promising us, and people would be jealous. We've seen none of it. Instead, what we saw was $110 million from the CIP dumped into SSDF so that ministers can use at their disposal. We had a entire saga around the CIP. We barely survived because the individuals who were taken to task, they pled diplomatic immunity. So they got away with that one. But now they've fallen into a CIP, into an SSDF quagmire. And that's not the only place where we're hearing that the financial, that the Treasury has sprung a leak. And I want to ask, are the old Wasco pipes that they're complaining that a huge percentage of the water that the Wasco generates is lost because they leak out through those pipes, are these same pipes being used to ship money from the economic fund to other statutory bodies and institutions? Because I heard that a leak has sprung at St. Jude Hospital. The figure that I am hearing is EC $1 million. Now, last week, a press release appearing on St. Jude stationery, but with no indication that it's coming from the hospital itself, suddenly appears, refuting those claims. But I am reminded, I cannot take this seriously, because I am reminded that when Bank of St. Lucia lost their correspondence banking relationship with TD Bank, when that news hit St. Lucia, a similar move was made. But I know someone who banks in the US with TD Bank, not just one. And this individual, both of these individuals, on vacation here in St. Lucia, went to Bank of St. Lucia attempting to withdraw money or access their accounts in the US at TD Bank and were unable to do so. And not just with Bank of St. Lucia. They tried at other ATMs to access their TD Bank accounts in the US and could not do so. But remember, a similar press release to what the hospital issued on Friday, or what supposedly came from the hospital on Friday, was issued for that as well. So we cannot take that press release seriously. We need the board to say something. We need the CEO to say something. We need a press conference. I'm hearing that the Ministry of Economic Development, and I would like the Prime Minister to come out and, or the Minister of Economic Development, which I believe is Mr. Wayne Girard, I would like him to explain whether or not this tidbit has any credence to it. I want to ask Minister Girard directly. I know he's very shy. He doesn't normally take interviews, doesn't speak to the press. Is it true that the Ministry of Economic Development has been without a permanent secretary ever since Mr. Paul Hille, who by the way is the PS in that ministry, was sent on leave abruptly with no explanation? At the same time, the CEO of St. Jude's was sent on leave. Mr. Minister, you need to answer this question. And can we, the good people of St. Lucia, get an explanation as to why the permanent secretary was sent on leave? What are the circumstances surrounding his absence? I don't think that is too much to ask. When is he expected to resume his duties? I don't think that that is unreasonable in any way. You are the minister, and if the permanent secretary is on administrative leave or any other kind of leave, we the people deserve to know. I'm also hearing that there is a situation at the CSA. I would appreciate someone from that institution to explain why it is that we are hearing, if there is any credence to this as well, why we are hearing, oh, we have a call on the line. Good afternoon to you, caller. You are on the air.
Good afternoon, Angie.
How are you?
I'm doing great, Angie. And I was started by saying this, Angie. Zion train is coming our way.
Boy, let me tell you, you have to tell me where that train going. These days, I
Zion
ain't just hopping train like that, huh?
is coming our way. Oh, people, get on board. Angie, where there's a will, there is always a way.
That's true.
And no matter how long evil will roam, righteousness will find its way home, Angie.
That's true.
Angie, I'm calling on all the people who are listening on your talk show to join us in Castro Central. Join Sarah Flood on the March for freedom. This march is not for only seraph. It's a march for women. All the women's arm of the United Workers Party mobilize because Zion train is coming our way. It is a
I
fall of a tyrant, Angie.
I
And
don't think
Richard
we
Frederick is a
need
tyrant, and he is a number.
Caller, you said a women's arm of the United Workers Party, but I think you should extend that to all women of St. Lucia. All the women.
All women of Central, but I didn't finish, Angie.
Oh,
This,
sorry.
no matter what it is right now, this is a victory for women, Angie.
Yeah.
Because how long from Maniva Ward to all those women yourself, Angie, you went
Yeah.
through it in with Ernest and all those people. How long will women would stay silent as tyrants ravage them, asking them to give up their cat for money in all forms and in all ways, abuse to women, calling women, I will give you a pound of flesh.
Yeah.
You understand? With impunity again, those individuals have been plaguing the women of St. Lucia. But I know one thing about women in St. Lucia. Because I have a mother, Angie, you understand? I was born up, understand?
Yeah, I
And the
understand.
way I see my mother but the way I see my mother fight, not just to raise myself, but my other siblings as well. And so most of those mothers are single mothers. They have the support of their families sometimes, but many women in Castries Central and in St. Lucia and a whole do not have support from anybody. And the only main support base is SSDF.
Yeah.
When they're giving them the school bursaries and those different things, you should see the opening of I remember times of Sarah Flood. Time she was minister for Central Castries. I was working in the office those times when we had about thousands and thousands of mothers coming from all walks of life in Central Castries coming to the office for their bursaries and back to school backpacks with full with exercise books and those different things. And it is a situation where the cost of living, the whole situation in our country forces those people to break their pride and their tradition to come down to those places and just to sing up from government and those different things. And when we have allegations of that nature, this man is not just spitting in a woman's face, Angie. This man is spitting in every household that relies on SSDF funding to help them in their day-to-day things when it comes to children.
Yeah. Yep.
Actually, I'm from Central Castries and I was a part of the Rush Clap movement in terms of what is happening on the ground in our constituency. And I'll make it categorically clear on behalf of my people I represent, we reject any form of sexual misconduct against women, and we reject any abuse against women in whatever form it comes, whether it's verbal abuse, whether it's physical abuse, whether it's spiritual abuse. When it's abuse at the end, then we know. You understand? We have been getting thousands of reports over the past 5 to 6 years under Richard Frederick administration in Castries, where women have been victimized. And my mother on his talk show, she went in times of the campaign, went on his talk show and called my mother all forms of names.
Wow, I wasn't aware of that.
No, that was not only campaign because he was saying it was my mother and her thugs that are vandalizing the communities and doing all kind of things. He mentioned my mother name and said, oh, this is bullshit he said on his talk show.
He called your mom a thug?
Yeah. My mother and her thugs. That's what he said.
Wow.
I mentioned it because
No, don't mention names.
My
Don't
mother
mention
is
names.
a freedom fighter, you understand? My mother is a freedom fighter in the inner boroughs of the city, you understand?
Yeah.
She's somebody that have changed the community when it comes to the gun violence and the situation that we were facing in our community by taking the young children. Right? You know why? She take the young children and the community center. He take the key from her in the community center because we used to have after school programs, church programs, all those different things. It never stopped us. they love the center, but we have our programs outside of the center. You
Right.
understand? So
Mm-hmm.
that is why I tell you, Zion train is coming our way. Because all the women in Central Countries, they know what this man is capable of and what he have been doing over the years. It had to take somebody, and God had to use the right person at the right time, at the right place to expose what they have been doing over the years. And probably all of the other male ministers had access to SSDF funds, so probably everybody's holding their thing. But Angie, by this week into the next week, we'll get some good news again.
Caller,
They
let me
put in
tell you
that
that,
first
eh?
phase.
Caller,
Yeah.
I'm hearing reports that other ministers, I heard a report about a young girl, about 19 years old, who went to a specific minister, a minister that she had campaigned for, that she had voted for. And that minister said to her point blank, I can help you, but you have to sleep with me. Pass something.
Uh-huh.
Yep,
Uh-huh.
yep.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not,
And
we
just
are
recently,
focusing, we
just
are focusing on Mr. Frederick because that's where we are getting, that is where the the
leakage.
the leakage is. But I can assure you, caller, he is not the only minister who is guilty, And that's the sad thing about it.
That's why they've been very cautious.
He is not the
But
only minister.
Angie, even recently there was a young lady from New Brazil
Mm-hmm.
came out publicly. She was in your show,
Yes.
she was
Yeah.
housing conditions at her home and the situation. And I told you before, Angie, I thank God for this young lady actually coming out because you know what happened?
Mm-hmm.
This man says to me and anybody else in Central, if you do not support me or Labour, you're not getting nothing from them in
Oh,
Central. And it
wow.
is true. It is true. You know the thing when I say one set of people getting work for over 6 years, one set of guys getting work in each community.
Well, caller, it's not
Everybody's
six
aware
years
of it.
yet, eh?
Everybody
It's
knows.
caller, it's not 6 years
Richard
yet.
Frederick.
Uh, last week was the 5 year anniversary. So it's not 6 years yet.
Ah, fine, okay. It's feeling so draining. It's feeling so draining, and it's feeling already like 6 years.
I
But
understand.
Angie, I will tell you one more thing again. This man has no safe haven or no stronghold in Central. It was
Wow.
money talks, bullshit walking that election in Central Castries, and we in Central knew he never won the election. And it is in court, so I cannot really talk about it too much. But we were winning by over 300. We had 600 votes. Richard Frederick had about 300 votes. System crash. All of us that we rushed go down to 300 votes, and he went up to 600 votes. We know what's going on. You understand? And we know he doesn't have no stronghold in Central. So he know what we know is that his time is up. You understand? And he just have to resign and do the honorable thing and just leave solution politics alone and let us have a new chapter in our history. But
Right.
before I leave, what I just want to tell your viewers and listeners, whether it's abroad or at home, is that we need help in Central Castries. And if they can, and with the help we need is financial, you understand? So if
Yeah.
they can donate to you, Angie, or whatever they can do, because we are running a campaign on the ground that Richard must go. And that campaign, it needs money. We need the support. The infrastructure is already there on the ground where we are ready, and we are ready for that seat to come back home to the United Workers Party. You understand, Angie? Because if when this by-election call, we're supposed to be ready and able by just even if the Labour try to send somebody, because we're already on the ground. Even if the Labour try to send somebody, all roads will be blocked. And that is a United Workers Party seat. It has always been a United Workers Party seat. And if you know the history, tell me,
Yeah.
wasn't the Central Caste always been a United Workers Party stronghold?
As far as I know, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we are saying to your viewers and listeners is that when the city fall, it will be a symbolic gesture to the entire country that change is coming. And the Zion train is passing through Central. After it passes through Central, it will pass through each and every other constituency. Have a blessed one, Angie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, caller. Thank you so much. I wasn't aware that people's mothers were being called out. My goodness. But I did get my fair share. But anyway, let's focus on what's important. Guys, the name of the charity that we are partnering with, it's called Make a Difference Charity, and they are enabling us they are facilitating us in providing aid to these two young ladies, the one in Rosehill that the caller was speaking about, Miss Kira Joseph, and also Miss Lucilla Charles in Savans. Is that Savans Bay? Yes, Savans Bay, View Fort, the widow of Mr. Ricky Joseph. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to talk some more about what is going on in St. Lucia and how important it is and how imperative it is, guys, that we know or we ensure that we rally our support behind Mrs. Bobre and other people like her, because if we allow this to continue, in the words of the Prime Minister, the only people that will be hurt, not the politicians, the country. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You already know the power of Licks products on your clothes and household. You licked your whites and clean pillows, leaving them fresh and scented. You licked your dishes and left your hands protected with whitening. You licked your floors, even licked your toilet. Now expand and bring you 3 new scents in our fabric softener: Balmy Sunshine, Summer Sunshine, 1,000 Flowers, and licks those stains off clothes with Licks Cleanser. Licks went even further, wanting to get your body soap bars in deodorant and antibacterial, so licks tiredness and bacteria out, and refresh your tired body. Your products giving you licks? Then choose Licks from Canadian Distribution Inc. Available at all leading supermarkets.
Beat the summer heat with a relaxing glide down those river. Leave your cares behind as you lose yourself in the tranquility of nature. Kids home from school, no problem. Take them along on an unforgettable adventure. St. Lucia Bamboo Rafting introduces its Summer River Special. Start with a welcome cocktail to set the mood. Then enjoy a 90-minute guided tour and a cooler filled with drinks for your refreshment. Tours start from 9:30 a.m. and every 2 hours, with the last tour at 3:30 p.m. Adults pay 100 EC per person. Kids ages 5 to 11 years old, 50 EC. We are located in the Rosal Valley, next to St. Lucia Distiller. Reservations call 1758-720-2020. Don't forget to like St. Lucia Bamboo Rafting on Facebook and Instagram. St. Lucia Bamboo Rafting. Let us take you from stressed to relaxed in 90 minutes flat.
Pretty soon my land will be gone in the hands of
Fire FM 107.7 presents Full Disclosure, a hard-hitting political program bringing you the facts on political issues. Hosted by Foster Chico every Monday from 4 to 7 p.m. on Fire FM 107.7. Call us at 758-572-3473. It's Full Disclosure this Monday and every Monday 4 to 7 p.m. with Foster Chico.
We're back on Fire 107.7 FM, and this is Hardtalk. You're listening to Angie. Guys, earlier I was trying to get you to understand the gravity of the situation that we face. And it just keeps getting worse. Day by day, you get another soupçon, according to the old people, of another leak being sprung in the financial machinery of the country. And there are so many questions that still require answers. And we need those answers. Now, I was telling you earlier about the relationship between friendly governments, the SSDF, and why we cannot allow the SSDF to be embroiled in any kind of corruption. Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, a couple months ago, was questioned by the local media on the loss of our visas to the UK, of our visa-free access to the UK. And he made a very telling statement. But that statement was very accurate. He said, and I quote, that for as long as he is in government, he will have a diplomatic visa enabling him to travel anywhere, and his ministers will have the same privileges. And he also said, when you think Aaron saying these things is affecting me, when you go around talking about these things as if you are affecting me, the only person being affected is not me, it's not Philip J. Pierre, it's the country. That's the part I want you to pay attention to. The politicians are not the ones being affected by these developments. The politicians come and go. Come next election, some will go and some will stay. But the only thing that is eternal is the country. And when these events take place, it's not Philip J. Pierre or Richard Frederick or Ernest Hilaire. They're not the ones that will not receive grant funding. They're not the ones that will not be able to borrow money. They're not the ones that will be blacklisted in international circles. No, that black mark will be against St. Lucia, the country. If we allow this bobo to fester, it will be to the detriment of our country. People are already leaving St. Lucia in droves, searching for greener pastures elsewhere. If we do not stand up now, our country is well on its way to becoming a failed state. And let me take in some of your social media messages as I see that. Somebody here says, Angie, is St. Lucia truly a democratic country? Doesn't Mrs. Sarah Flood Bowbray have a right like any other citizen to stand anywhere in her own country? Yes, she does. Yes, she does. Contrary to popular belief, yes, she does. Somebody says, well, the SSDF funds took another road under this government. Someone says, It's not CIP, now SSDF, IHM. Now, you can clearly see that this is one of the Festuses that come here seeking attention. It is the CIP, it is the SSDF, it is every road or avenue of corruption. That is what we want to prevent. So when you come on this live, please, if you're not here for truth, integrity, accountability, and transparency, then sit in the back of the class and be quiet. Somebody says, say it again, Angie, and say it louder. Another one says, so none of the ministers knows about that dishonest spending of the SSDF funds. Why are they keeping silent? Well, I think all of the ministers know. I think all of the ministers know, and I'll tell you why I believe that. Because reports are coming in from businesses, from individuals, that the SSDF has been used by this government as far back as 2021 when they first entered office. They have been using monies from the SSDF indiscriminately. What we don't know for a fact is who sanctioned the use of these funds. Now we can venture a guess as to who we think has sanctioned it, but I don't want to guess. I want the information from the source itself. Then that is why we are calling on Mr. Victorin, the board members, the Prime Minister, all of the individuals who have jurisdiction over the SSDF to tell us what is going on. But they seem to be conspicuously silent because some of the individuals on the SSDF board, they can only come out to attack people on social media who do not subscribe to their views. But we're waiting. We are waiting. Somebody says, gee, they had enough monies to open the old St. Jude's Hospital. The place is still closed. Yes, the place is still closed. And that's another thing we need the Prime Minister to account for. Because, well, not the Prime Minister specifically. That one I will call upon the Minister of Health. Is it true what we're hearing about a fire at St. Jude's? How impactful was that fire, Mr. Minister? And what does it mean for the opening of the hospital? Somebody's saying my cup is too big. I like my big cup. Another one says, Gerard is shy, but not when he is lying. Well, I know he's shy. He does not speak to the press. He doesn't take... I asked him about it once. Somebody says, yes, I call her. Somebody says, by tomorrow, some things will be out there. Wait for it. Are you saying, listener, that there is more? Because what we've heard so far is so damning. There is still more? Somebody says, Angie, I am not surprised. Another individual says, Angie, I am hearing parents are going to the SSDF for assistance for the opening of school and they are being turned down. Has the SSDF ever done an independent audit since this SLP took reign in this country? There is no funding to help citizens. Like, really? Interpol, Scotland Yard, and FBI really need to investigate some individuals privately. I don't know what is going on at the SSDF, but rumors are beginning to circulate that certain people who work there or board members or whatever, they're being sent off to work in other places. We want to know, is this true? The SSDF is very critical to life in St. Lucia, people. I can say I place the SSDF on the same par as a major hospital, because I see the SSDF as an agency that deals in life and death situations. They are the safety net that catch our people when they are down and out. This is an essential agency, and we need everything in good working order. But we're not hearing anything. Somebody says July 31st, another bombshell, more evidence. Wow. I cannot believe you guys are telling me that there is more to come. I cannot believe it, because I have heard so many things. Just over the weekend, I heard some voice notes or recording phone calls or whatever they were, and they were chilling. So I cannot believe that there is more to come. I cannot believe that. But I'm calling on the Prime Minister. And I'm calling on the women of St. Lucia. Because, you see, they keep making these statements, and there are all of these people who, whenever somebody speaks out, they come out and they attack people. They cannot give you concrete evidence that will exonerate their ministers or their party or their government. So they resort to baseless and sometimes, well, most times, pointless personal attacks. Because, I mean, come on, a lady of the stature of Sarah Flood Beaubray, you're going to come on social media and talk all kinds of things, personal attacks, personal things about her marriage and whatever. They cannot attack her logic. They know she is standing on the side of right. Even myself, I've been the focus of some of them making some really foolish, taking all of that time and energy to make some really foolish statements. But I want them to know that these statements and attacks, they don't take away from the truth, and they're not diverting anybody's attention. Everybody is listening. They're tuned in to what is going on at the SSDF. They're tuned in to what is going on with Minister Richard Frederick, who, by the way, should not be on administrative leave. He should be fired from the cabinet of ministers. It's not like we don't have ministers to replace him. Senator Chanda Harak Singh, or Chanda Lee Harak Singh, whatever her name is, she's a spare minister. The Prime Minister, in my opinion, didn't need Richard Frederick in the first place. You had your people. You don't need him. And don't tell me, a lot of people are coming out and saying, oh, the Prime Minister is afraid of Richard Frederick. That's not his job. The Prime Minister is not being paid to be afraid. He's being paid to govern. He can be afraid on his own dime. He can be afraid when he knock off at 4:30. But he cannot be afraid between the hours of 8 to 4:30. 4:41 he can be afraid if he wants. Between 8 and 4:30, I don't know what his day is like. I'm just assuming. The prime minister has to be the prime minister. He has to be the leader. He has to govern the country. And in so doing, he has to ensure that the integrity of St. Lucia is intact. Our reputation is protected. And the country is on the right path. So I'm calling on the prime minister. And you know what hurts me the most, guys? I'm going to be honest with you. I take this as a personal insult to the prime minister. Because I don't want to believe that the prime minister sanctioned the use of SSDF checks indiscriminately. And even if the prime minister said, okay, I'm putting this $110 million into the SSDF, and that is for you guys to use in your constituencies to protect the victory however you see fit. I'm just saying, let's just, for argument's sake, that the prime minister said, here is this money, use it how you see fit in your constituency, use it to protect your victory. To take that inch that the prime minister gives you and to stretch it, take it to 25 miles or 55 miles in the case of Richard Frederick, because me miles we, ipola. To use these checks in that way, to my mind as a citizen of St. Lucia, that is a personal insult to Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre. That is something that can go back to the Prime Minister and embarrass him. And to me, the Prime Minister should be very quick to act the same urgency that he acted in the case of Stanley Felix to protect the integrity of the Senate. He should have moved with that same swift agility to protect the integrity of the Parliament when this information first came to light. It is his job. Somebody says, Angie, the financial minister must be able to account for the indiscriminate use of these checks for both terms. Hence, he knows about the use in the past election. But he's not accounting. We're not hearing anything. Somebody says this has to be the worst Labour Party bunch. It's party first, self first. I'm scared for St. Lucia and the goats that follow them brainlessly. Another says, Angie, what is the SLP really celebrating on the market steps? What is the SLP really celebrating on the market steps on Thursday? Corruption and bauble, increase in crime, poor healthcare, and a stagnant economy that keeps the citizenry poor and dependent. Yep. Is it a celebration? I don't think what they're doing on the market steps is a celebration, you know. Didn't they say that they were having a public meeting to talk about the issue with the SSDF? Because I for one, this market steps thing, guys. What exactly are they going to look for on the market steps? Isn't the market steps the place where they go to start their political campaign? To me, that is what it signals. That they're starting to politic. They're starting their campaign. So is the Prime Minister trying to say that we are going to have a is the Prime Minister saying that we're going to have an election soon? Because why would he be going on the market steps? If you have, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, if you are being asked questions by your citizenry, and then you take to a place known for, the place where you go and politic, the place where you go and start your campaign. It's not even 1 year since you won an election. What exactly are you going to look for on the market steps? I do not understand. Somebody on the Facebook, we have some, not Facebook, WhatsApp platform. Somebody here says RF must go. Another one says, hi Angie, good afternoon. Nancy Charles said there was an electrical fire at St. Jude's. She can attest to that. And 4 vans from Lucilec had to intervene. There's no way that hospital will be opened. She spoke about the lawyer's letter Hilaire had sent to her to take her to court, and he had to retract it. Truth to power. The market steps is for the fishmongers. Well, I don't know, but I don't see a reason why the Prime Minister needs to go to the market steps. Why does this Prime Minister forget that he can simply address the nation? He has to go on the market steps for everything. I don't understand. We're asking you for accountability, something that you promised us in your campaign. Instead, you are politicking. You're campaigning. 7 months, guys. It's been 7 months since the Prime Minister won an election. What is he doing on the market steps? Another says, when you sow seeds and you plant those seeds, it will grow into trees, and those trees will bear fruits, and somebody has to be responsible for the fruits. So in short, Angie, what you sow is what you reap. I can't argue with that. Somebody says PJP does not have the balls to do this because Frederick calls the shots. No, my lady. Philip J. Pierre needs to find whatever balls he needs. He needs to find them. I don't know if it's basketballs. I don't know if it's tennis balls, footballs, soccer balls. He needs to find them. Cricket ball. I don't know. He might have to go to Scott's Sports Shop. But he needs to find whatever balls he needs. Because he is the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister said at a pre-cabinet press briefing that he won, and he won big. He said he got more votes. He's gotten the biggest mandate that he has ever gotten. He should be the strongest Prime Minister ever. He said he was the most readied. So he has to find it. Somebody says they are celebrating their 5 years in office. Okay. They can do that. Somebody said, did the political campaign ever end, Angie? Caller, you have a point there. It never ended. Somebody says, the Labourers know all what is good for Flubbos to do, but not for themselves. Another says, most of the people are going for a free bear and barbecue chicken. Somebody says Mr. Alan Shaste would never take serious issues like this to the market steps. It has to do with visionary leadership. We as a people fail to see that. Guys, not all of us fail to see that. Because we know, we simply choose to let this continue. We simply choose to allow this kind of corruption to fester. There is this somebody's giving us an explanation. They said, when Prosper was in trouble, they went to Denry. When Virginia was in trouble, they went to Babuno. When Wayne disappeared, Gerard was in trouble, they went to Ancillary. Now that RF is in trouble, they're heading to Castries Central. That might be the thing, but RF is not the only one in trouble. RF is not the only one in trouble. And if the Prime Minister does not understand how serious this is, he might find himself under even more pressure than Richard Frederick. Because many people are beginning to say that if the Prime Minister cannot find the testicular fortitude to deal with this RF situation, then he might have to leave. So I don't think the Prime Minister should be so concerned with protecting his minister. Somebody says maybe Castries Central by-election. I doubt. I don't think so. From what I've seen, guys, and from what I'm understanding in this situation, it seems to me that the Prime Minister is trying to find every way he can of shielding Richard Frederick, but still trying to give the people what they want. Or maybe the Prime Minister is trying to, I don't know. He wants to give the people what they want, but he does not want to fire Richard Frederick. So I think that's what he's doing. But I don't think this is going to work, because the people are demanding justice. The people are demanding Richard Frederick demits office. And I don't think the people will be satisfied with Richard Frederick on leave, because the Prime Minister himself was not satisfied with Eubaldus Raymond on leave. Somebody says we were in election mood, so are they preparing for election? I don't know. This is a situation, in my view, that the Prime Minister cannot escape. He cannot escape it. It doesn't matter what he says, what he does. No amount of maneuvering or trying to meet people halfway. It's like he wants to please Richard Frederick, but he also wants to try to appease the people. It's not going to work. Somebody says PJP is going to the market step to get the people attention to deal with Richard Frederick's saga to make a decision. No, he is the one charged with making the decision. Why are we taking or allowing him to shirk his responsibility? If the Prime Minister leaves it to the people to make a decision, why is he the Prime Minister? He shouldn't be the Prime Minister. He needs to take responsibility. It is his job. I don't know if he understands. But he is the only one with the authority to fire Richard Frederick from his cabinet, because he is the one who put him there in the first place. We the people cannot fire him. We cannot fire him. That purview rests solely on the Prime Minister's shoulders. We can vote him out of Castries Central, but we cannot fire him from the cabinet. And as the leader of the country, everything that goes wrong in his cabinet reflects poorly on Philip J. Pierre. That's why I say to you guys, to me personally, I take Richard Frederick's actions as a direct insult to the Prime Minister. This is a slap in the face of the Prime Minister, who allows you, an independent candidate, because every time the Prime Minister has been questioned, he says Richard Frederick is not a member of his party. So, as the Prime Minister, I have allowed you, an independent candidate or so-called independent candidate, to serve in my cabinet, and then you turn around and behave in such a way. If I were Philip J. Pierre, nobody would have to call for Richard Frederick's head. I would have it on a spike in front of the Parliament building. Figuratively, guys, not literally. Not literally. But he would have to account. Why is Philip J. Pierre swallowing such an insult? Come on, man. Somebody here says, Angie, this story was breaking news in Dominica and the entire region. Another says, true. Somebody says, Angie, you know that he will blame the UWP and Shastney when he is in charge and the head of SLP. But how can he blame Alan Shastney and the UWP? I don't understand. Is it Alan Shastney's phone that the police confiscated? Was it Alan Shastney's house that the police searched? Was it Alan Shastney who the police arrested and brought down to the VPT station, VPT department, and had under questioning for hours on end? Is it Alan Shastney who the allegations were leveled at? Was Alan Shastney's name, was it Alan Shastney's handwriting on those SSDF checks? Was it Alan Shastney's voice in the voice notes? How is Alan Shastney and the UWP, how do they have anything to do with this whatsoever? I don't understand the reasoning. I don't understand. Somebody says here, the Labours were calling on Alan Shastney to fire Ubaldus. Yes, not just the Labours. This same Prime Minister, Philip J. Pierre, he was the one calling. He had a political rally in Labrie. He called on the women of St. Lucia and he said to us that we need to call for Ubaldus's dismissal forthwith. He instructed us, the women of St. Lucia, that when a minister's actions are injurious to the public good that this minister or these ministers cannot serve in our cabinet. Have you guys forgotten? Because I have not. That is what Philip J. Pierre asked of the women of St. Lucia. So now that the women of St. Lucia are asking him to keep his word, he should be happy to do so. He should be extremely happy to do so. These are his instructions that we are following. Somebody else is saying, oh my God, they will not say anything because all of them are going down too. Well, I don't know, but they have to. Another person is saying here, Angie, where is Miss Alvina Reynolds, who was championing the cause for 2 ministers in Flabo to step down amidst allegations? I don't know. She's very silent. I guess she is at the Senate. But I haven't heard anything from her or any of the other women, though. I have not heard anything from any of the women on the SLP side. I don't know why. But then again, when it comes to Richard Frederick, the women of the SLP are notoriously silent. They are notoriously silent. I don't know why. That might be an interesting question to ask one of these days. Another individual says, this situation is the water PJP did not test prior to having himself vulnerable by making the same member who is not fit to be a party member a member of his cabinet. He knows better, but because he was so desperate to win, he sacrificed the same victory for a seat. This is like selling your bed just to buy sleep. All the people from the SSDF who are being said to be placed in other work areas rather than dismissing their employment is simply a move to win votes, nothing else but securing the victory. Well, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't see how the Prime Minister can maneuver away from sending Richard Frederick home. This minister has been embroiled in so many scandals that, to me, I mean, is it really worth keeping somebody of Richard Frederick's reputation in the cabinet if you are going to lose the support of the entire country? Because the women of this country, they're not having this. They're not having it. They are not having it. Richard Frederick needs to go. He needs to go. And I don't understand why Richard Frederick himself is not volunteering to step down. I remember a time many years ago, early 2000s, when Richard Frederick lost his visa. And I remember him making a statement, and I saw that statement again on social media quite recently, where Richard Frederick said that he did not want to bring the government into disrepute, and so he voluntarily stepped down from the government. I also recall Richard Frederick resigning from the UWP at the time, stepping down from his seat, running the seat again as an independent candidate, winning that seat, and then coming back into the folds of the UWP. And he gave an explanation for his actions. He said that he did not want to bring the government into disrepute. So what has changed? What has changed? Why is he now willing to bring the government into disrepute? Is it because he's allowed to do so? Because back then, when this incident occurred, Richard Frederick was serving under the leadership of Sir John Compton. And he did not want to bring that government into disrepute. So, what does that say for the leadership of Philip J. Pierre and the respect that his cabinet ministers have for him? I'm going to leave it there. Prepare, women of St. Lucia. Prepare to keep demanding what is right, what is just, keep demanding accountability, keep demanding transparency from our government, and prepare to mobilize at the drop of a hat, because this is our country. Oh, somebody is. Hold on. Somebody says Richard Frederick was serving under King's leadership when he lost his visas. I stand corrected. Thank you for that correction. Somebody says, but Angie, Albert Fridges told us so in the 2011 general elections. What more do we need to hear as a people? That came from his own co-host. I do recall Albert Fridges making a statement. I think I have that statement here somewhere. Let's see if I can play it. There it is. Let's see if I can play that statement that Albert Fridges made. His co-host on Can I Help You?
You are all willing to compromise and tarnish every St. Lucian's reputation for the actions of one UWP candidate. Prime Minister King has never managed to put the good of the nation ahead of his own political survival. Not once. This UWP government is now officially forcing all of us to accept what is truly unacceptable. The good people of St. Lucia cannot and will not accept this. The St. Lucia Labour Party cannot and will not accept this. Call elections and let the people's voices be heard. You are all willing to compromise and tarnish every St. Lucian's reputation for the actions of one UWP candidate. Prime Minister King has never managed to put the nation ahead of his own political survival. Not once. This UWP government is now officially forcing all of us to accept what is truly unacceptable. The good people of St. Lucia cannot and will not accept this. The St. Lucia Labour Party cannot and will not accept this. Call elections and let the people's voices be heard. Okay.
You all recognize the voice, right? I mean, that's the same voice just last Thursday was telling you how well they know Richard Frederick's privates. This is the same voice saying that the entire government was forcing the people to contend with something that is unacceptable, to accept something that is unacceptable. Just switch out Prime Minister King for Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, and it is the same situation. Forcing the people of St. Lucia to accept something that is unacceptable, placing the entire government in disrepute for the actions of one candidate. The good people of St. Lucia will not accept this. The UWP will not accept it. Somebody says that's why this government is keeping people poor, so they will depend on them for handouts, and these people will vote for them. Well, enough is enough. Guys, I'm getting a message here from Mr. Foster Chico, and he is asking you to stay tuned because he says full disclosure will be hot. So guys, stay tuned. Another one says it's simply because all these people think that they are bigger than their britches. That is why we get all this disrespect. Says you see the double standard and hypocrisy, Angie? That same Albert Fridges has forgotten his statements back in 2011. Just 10 years later, and he is now asking us to forget what he said 10 years ago. Or 15 years ago. Is it 15? Yeah. 15 years ago. How can you trust these people, St. Lucia? How can we trust people who come to us with one message and then because of political expediency, they suddenly have amnesia? They forget what they said just a few short years ago. And they come to us and they want us to accept the same thing that they told us initially was not good. So you came to us in 2011 and you told us Richard Frederick was not good. You told us Richard Frederick was the worst thing to happen to St. Lucian politics. You told us Richard Frederick was a man of ill repute. You made several damning criminal allegations against Mr. Frederick. Since then, there has been no trial. There has been no avenue for Mr. Frederick to prove his innocence. There has been no exoneration of Mr. Frederick of any kind. But all in a sudden, as of today, Mr. Frederick, you're coming back to us to tell us that Mr. Frederick is an angel. So are you admitting that you lied to us back in 2011? Or are you saying that the only reason why we should accept him is because he is on your side? You can't have it both ways. You cannot have your cake and eat it too. And before we end, because we're almost there, I want to play a statement by the PRO of the United Workers' Party, Mr. Leonard Spider Montoot. We haven't heard from him in a while, but he spoke today after a long absence on Newspin. And I think it is very important that we listen to what Mr. Montoot has to say. So I'm going to end the show with this clip from Mr. Leonard Spider Montoot. Hold on. I think I have the volume down. Okay, let's try this again. While we wait for that clip, let me just read two messages. It says here, because Angie, they are singing for their supper. Another says, today that same Albert Fregis is the lawyer defending IRF in all these serious allegations. The world, Angie, is truly a cycle. Here is Mr. Leonard Spider Montoot on Newspin this afternoon.
Hello and good afternoon to you. You are on the air. Hello. Hi, good afternoon to you, caller.
Hi, good afternoon, Tim.
Hi, good afternoon to you, Mr. Montoot.
Hi. Yes, Tim. The bacchanal is over, Tim, but the scandal continues. You know, I just heard the leader of the opposition talk about some of us being silent. Well, you know, Tim, I have maintained my silence, watching, waiting, and hoping that the PM would for a change honor his words and show reverence for the office that he holds and safeguard the principles of accountability, good governance, and wholesome democracy. But as we have come to expect from Philip Chipier, it is all about politics and the paramountcy of the party. It is not uncommon, Tim, to hear allegations and accusations leveled at politicians in St. Lucia, often by anonymous sources and without a shred of credible evidence. However, when a party or parties come forward and directly implicate a government minister and there is evidence, albeit to be tested, suggesting that there is substance to the accusation, this must be taken seriously and our leaders must demonstrate propriety in dealing with the matter. Countries like the UK and the USA, after which we have fashioned our democracy to, are replete with examples of how such matters are dealt with. That is, if they are responsible, they are dealt with in a transparent and credible manner by good leaders. St. Lucia is fast going down the path of a rogue, corrupt, anti-democratic one-party state with Philip Chipier and the St. Lucia Labour Party government. Meanwhile, the citizens of this country are by our behavior inadvertently condoning and encouraging it with silence and indifference. St. Lucians are scared to speak out or to take a stand for a number of reasons. And I will give you a few examples of the reasons why. For example, some benefit from government jobs and contracts and are afraid to lose that. Secondly, many are scared of reprisals and victimization meted out to them or their families
and so they keep quiet. Some are scared of verification and personal attacks on their reputation and character, and so they remain hiding. Others rely on government handouts, which will not be forthcoming if they speak out or take a stand. This having been said, I feel a moral compulsion as someone who has been around and a former Minister of Social Transformation with responsibility for the SSDF and knowing what that agency is meant for and how it is supposed to operate. We are seeing copies of SSDF checks alleged to have been issued by Richard Frederick, a member of cabinet who has no jurisdiction over the agency, for purposes totally unrelated to the mandate of SSDF, which is specifically intended to serve and deliver basic assistance to the disadvantaged, marginalized, and indigent in our communities. This is a serious indictment on Minister Frederick, being accused of misappropriating government funds intended for an entirely different and far more noble purpose than what he is alleged to have used it for. The minister with oversight for SSDF must also be held accountable and explain how such a situation was allowed to fester under his watch. After all, the minister is responsible for providing oversight to the organization and to ensure that it functions according to its mandate and the dictates of the SSDF Act. By the way, Tim, the Prime Minister, Philip Chipier, Minister of Finance, is the substantive minister responsible for the SSDF. Then, of course, there is the executive director and the board of directors who manage the affairs and operation of the agency, who should not allow for the possibility for such an abuse of the SSDF funds to occur. Those funds are sourced from private entities, from the CDB, World Bank, and other donor agencies and governments like the UK and Taiwan, under the pretext that it would be used for the poor and vulnerable. But instead, Tim, we are seeing that it's being used for other illicit purposes. The executive director, Mr. Victorin, must make a statement to let us know whether he is guilty of gross dereliction of duty, allowing a situation like this, or whether there was a higher overriding power that sanctioned that misuse of the poor people's funds. There are also some prominent members on the board of directors who ought to know better and who should not aid and abet that kind of abuse of state funds, nor remain silent in the face of such abuses. And I want to single out a few of them. For example, Mr. Imran Williams. And for those of you who do not know, he is the Director of Finance in St. Lucia. He is government's Chief Accounting Officer for Finance, and most certainly he ought to know better. And in terms of how, I want to know how can he, allow this to take place under his watch, and up to now, he has not found it fit to utter one word. Dr. Cordelia Ambrose, she's the PS of local government, a PS in Richard Frederick's ministry. As a PS, you ought to know the proper administration and running of government and government agencies. And what have you got to say, Madam PS? Have you upheld your responsibility as a director by allowing a situation like what is being described to have taken place? There are also some prominent citizens as well. For example, there is a gentleman called Mr. Lucius Elevic, and he is the representative of the credit unions on the board of directors. You certainly, sir, must have an understanding of financial administration and accounting for the proper use of funds. I am certain you do not want to be seen as a conspirator, nor would you want this to create questions about the institutions you represent. Of course, there is also another person I want to mention, for obvious reasons. There is also the vocal, outspoken advocate and champion of women and poor people's causes, Catherine Fields. It is rather odd that you two, Catherine Fields, are part of the silent squad on this. Just as you have called on me and others in the past to speak out, it is incumbent upon you as a director of the SSF and part and parcel of what goes on with the agency to raise your voice. It is important that all St. Lucians who know better and are well intentioned to begin to speak out and take a stand. There are, there are those who are invested in the suppertime choir team, those who sing by the supper. There are the Calypsonians, some of them, media workers, and the party sycophants who are preoccupied brown-nosing and too blind to recognize the long-term deleterious and detrimental results of allowing the erosion of good governance and democratic principles. Finally, then, Prime Minister Philip Gibbie, I hope he is not paralyzed by fear or losing power. I hope he's not afraid of losing power. I hope he's not afraid of Richard Frederick. I hope he is not afraid of upholding good governance, and that he too will do the honorable and appropriate thing and relieve Richard Frederick of his position in cabinet. We are not talking about any administrative matter. We're talking about a decisive action of leadership that represents good governance, that is consistent with democratic principles, and that upholds the appearance that justice is being allowed to be served. So, Richard Frederick must be relieved of his position as a minister in the cabinet. I want to say to the Prime Minister, you must demonstrate that this matter involving Minister Frederick is being dealt with seriously and justice will be seen to be done. Do what's right. Frederick must go. Do not be fooled into believing for a moment that this will just go away with the passage of time. You must act, or those of us who have the best interests of St. Lucia at heart will act. Don't take us for granted. Richard Frederick must resign. Richard Frederick has to go. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you so much. Just heard there from.
Well, there you heard it. And we are familiar with a number of the names that he called on who are members of the board. Somebody here is saying, good afternoon, Miss Angie. St. Lucians, take heed. I'm saying this ahead of some information that will come out soon. Let it be clear that when a person is accused or being investigated for allegedly committing a crime and the complainant decides that he or she does not want to proceed further with the investigation for whatever reason, this does not mean that the crime was not committed. Even sometimes when the matter is before the court and for some reason or another the matter is dismissed or withdrawn, this does not always mean that the accused person did not commit the crime. This can happen for various reasons. Do not be fooled, St. Lucians. It means that we must stay vigilant with our ears and eyes wide open. A lot will be coming out before the election so that persons can remain in position or be given higher positions. Do not allow politics or politicians to cloud your judgment. Remain focused, stay awake, St. Lucians, and do not be distracted. Make your voices heard, and to the women of St. Lucia, get up and stand up for your rights. This is essential to help protect particularly young girls who can't stand up for themselves. Like Jukba would say in Patois, who will guard our guards? I hope this message reaches all St. Lucians. Be educated and please do not remain silent, as your silence may come at a cost to our beloved St. Lucia. I am a bit lost for words and feel overwhelmed with the rate at which the crime situation escalates in our country, and more so the response from the government officials and the hierarchy of the RSLPF, or the lack thereof. Their silence is deafening. In my opinion, both of them are in disarray and do not have a clue. square pegs in round holes. So St. Lucians, regardless of political affiliation, speak out against crime and criminality now. Give the government your ideas, even if it finds its way to Dayglow, because if you don't, history will judge you for your silence. Crime affects us all, St. Lucia, whether you're involved or not. Miss Angie, I wrote you this piece on September 17th, 2025, and you see what happens when we remain silent because of the party? Look it, who doesn't hear must feel. Please read this piece again. Thank you for your time. And I do recall being sent this message and reading it out. Now that I'm reading it again, a lot of things are being put into perspective. Somebody says, Albert went from telling St. Lucia Richard is not good for us, but yet still a government trying to force him on us, to teaming up with RF to bring down our good leader, Uncle Shas. Right now, I'm not even sure if I rather Albert meet Shas on a lonely road rather than RF. Somebody else says Catherine Seeley is the biggest hypocrite in St. Lucia. Another says, caller, the PM wouldn't remove Richard Frederick because Richard Frederick have some stain on the PM and his allies. Bo bo bow. I don't know what that means. The PM know they will all go down if they remove him from the administration. Remember, I told you all, keep this in mind. Guys, thank you all for joining me here on Hard Talk. Stay tuned. Don't go too far away, because Foster Chico is up next with Full Disclosure. I took as much of his time as I could. But yeah, and according to Foster, Full Disclosure is going to be hot. It's coming in hot, just like Hard Talk. Thank you so much for joining me, for all my contributors. And guys, don't forget, I will be sending you the information so that you can make your monetary contributions towards helping these two families that I appealed to you for assistance some time ago. And the name of the charity that we are teaming up with, it's the Make a Difference charity, and they are going to facilitate us with bringing some aid to these individuals who really need it. Thank you for your support. Thank you for always being there. Stay tuned. Full Disclosure is up next. I'm Angie. I'm leaving. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.